We are live.
Well, apparently we're live today. So, welcome
Mm.
everybody. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping here. Shame on me that I should have done a few moments ago, but let's put a little thing on here so people know what we're talking about. What are we talking about, Alex? Why don't you tell everyone what we're talking about?
What are we talking about? Well, first, welcome. Second, there's a couple different tags going around right now that some folks on the normal stream have started. So of course he's late because he's always late, but the main one is Sam St. John created a Americana tag, 20 questions regarding, Americana music and all that kind of stuff. And I'd say that's the main focus, but I'm coming in with like the JV squad too, and I was like, you know what? I just posted a Prog tag today, so basically we're being really obnoxious YouTube channels and just posting tags, but and maybe because I'm still in the honeymoon phase of YouTube, but I love it. I think it's great. Like I think these tags are fun. Jason, I don't know if you saw, there's a blues one going around right now.
I'm going to do that. That's Cheap and Cheerful, Jonathan.
He's great.
To be honest, I was going to do that. And then I was like, it just happened on my algorithms that came up. I'm like, well, it's better he does it. He knows way more anyway. But so I'll jump on that one for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Trevor.
Hey, Trevor.
So yeah, I get it. I think for some people they're probably tired of seeing them, but I just think there's so much cool stuff out there that
it's kind of fun because you don't have to think too hard to make your videos. Like you don't have to come up with an idea. Yeah. Someone's already done it for you.
I get how people could be tired, but actually, no, I take that back. I don't get how, like, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's engaging. You learn a shit ton about music. It's a very highly interactive video style to do.
And if you don't want to watch them, don't watch them.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think if you wanted to protect the whole tag thing, then just let Rob kick it off on January 1st. People want to participate in the original tag, then do that. But I don't think anyone should be shitting on the idea that there's lots.
I think everybody seems to be liking the tags because there's lots of them going around and people are doing them. And like there's ones I'm never going to watch any of the jazz ones. No disrespect to the jazz guys. I have zero interest in jazz, so I'm not going to watch them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch any Prog ones other than yours, Alex, because I know nothing about Prog. But I'll watch yours.
You'll watch Jason's too.
Well, if he does one, but he only does like one video every 6 weeks, so.
This will be the one.
This will be the one.
Well, he's got 3 more weeks before he's due for his next video. So
he's gonna show Dark Side of the Moon for 20 straight questions.
Yeah. Is that a Prog album? I don't fucking know. Well, I guess I better add that to my pile.
Is that right on? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I want to know this. We could save it for later, but the hell with it. Someone made a comment, was it maybe last week, or maybe it was in our chat, is Jethro Tull, is that a Prog band? Or I thought, did Glenn say something like Thick as a Brick, but they just did that as like a Prog parody? Do you consider Jethro Tull Prog?
It Absolutely. Better be, because Google says it is, and I need it to be in my stack here. So
okay, good.
Absolutely. Okay, to me, like I think there are artists who are like borderline. To me, they're not borderline. Like to me, Jethro Tull is like one of the most prolific progressive rock bands ever. Their first record, much like a lot of first records, is not really indicative of their sound. Their first record's really a blues, like a British blues type album. Yeah, and I love that album.
I love this album. I think this is the best.
But that's not really a Prog thing. But the thing is even before Thick as a Brick, like there were a lot of progressive rock elements. Thick as a Brick was a parody, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a progressive rock album. But the album that immediately followed Thick as a Brick that was not a parody was a passion play, which is Prog to like the nth degree, to like the most obnoxious like kind of way. So I think they are like fully in, not borderline, but yeah.
If someone was to ask me what Prog is, like, and my answer, and I would give all kinds. I would give all these disclaimers about I'm an idiot, I don't know what I'm talking about. But what I would say, and Alex, teach me here, like I would say the simplest way to describe it is, music that may not correspond with the verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus mentality? And like, what other defining characteristics are there when we're talking about like prog?
Yeah, so in my video, Jason, don't know if you've had a chance to watch my video.
Not yet. 8 days.
But you know, my thing is like prog as a genre, even though I'm someone who loves, that's my favorite type of music, but simply identifying something as prog as a genre has always kind of bothered me because it creates very like rigid edges. Like, you know, is this prog? Like, I hate the thing, is this prog or not prog? And I'm like, there's a lot of, I prefer the term like music that is progressive. So
yeah, I did see that much into the video before.
Progress, like, are there a lot of changes? Yeah, you're right. Does it follow like the same verse? You know, how much experimentation is going on? What type of technology is being utilized, right? Like, you know, Rob, it's funny you're sitting here and it's like, I don't know shit about damn prog, but what's funny though is that a lot of like prog nerds will look back at like the basis of prog was Sgt. Pepper. Like that is where it all began. It's this big concept. Yeah, it didn't end up being like the fully fleshed out concept, but a lot of experimentation, a lot of sounds that no one had heard before. Like people look at that as like, oh, like after people heard that record, other things were to follow that sort of go on with that. But what's so funny, Jason, is like, you know, there are obviously, when people think of like prog, they think of like the 30-minute song with, you know, a million time signatures and super complex compositions and all that kind of stuff. But like there's a lot of like Supertramp is prog. People will say The Police can be prog. I mean, there are so many different areas. I mean, you get into like the 80s and it's a completely different boat, like XTC and Tears for Fears and all those types of bands, because they were sort of experimenting with so many different things.
And we have to say hi to Sam, because last week he got mad that we didn't say hi to him as soon as he logged in, even though he was late.
St. John.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
Like man. Sam, you'd appreciate this, because you know, of like, you know, no prog thing. But I listened to this record the other night again, and I was like, this is fully like a, you know, I'm not going to call it a prog album, but like this is a progressive album, and that's no other from Gene Clark. Like the way that record is put together and the way it changes and flows, and it's very conceptual. I would be like, this is a progressive, whatever you want to call it, progressive country, progressive folk, whatever that term is. But I would fully buy into that, of like, you know, the same way that something like Tommy is.
Yeah. Well, what about like, I mean, because I mean, to be honest, I've only heard No Other once. Believe it or not, I own it, but I've only heard it once. But I heard that it's compared a lot in terms of like production to like an Astro Weeks. Like, what would you think of something as like an Astro Weeks, where it's free flowing songs? It's other than the lyrics. Well, even the lyrics, as a lot of it's improv, like jazz, and it's obviously got like the folky elements to it, but it's also production. It's just very open, and the notes don't fill every second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's progressive, like you said. It's a progressive album.
Yep.
Which, if you compare that to his first, like the album right before that, which was Blowing Your Mind, that had, you know, a Brown Eyed Girl on it. Yeah. It was like a bunch of like blues covers and stuff.
Well, and you make a great point with like Van Morrison. I mean, how many of these like long, drawn out compositions did he have?
Listen to The Lion, Independence
Day.
Oh
my God. And I love those. And I think the reason I love those is because like it kind of has its foot in progressive music in the same way. Like, yeah, just because it's not in like, you know, 11/8 and, you know, ripping guitar solos and
or weird cape, organ solos,
you know, or wearing a cape. Yeah. But it's like, oh my, like,
the man with the cape.
Yeah, I would totally buy that.
Larry David's prog album, The Man in the Cape.
Man in the Cape.
Hello there, French vinyl addict, and Steve.
Hey, Steve.
And the other 8 people that are watching.
To
recap, we are talking tonight. Sam launched a tag. Was that yesterday or 2 days ago, Sam? The Americana vinyl tag.
It might have been. It was Sunday night.
Sunday night. Okay, a couple days ago. An Americana vinyl tag. And not to be left out, Alex launched a prog tag today. So we thought we would chat about those today, and thought we'd show some more records. Some of us have done tag videos for either Jason or Sam or both. Doesn't have to be something we've shown, can just be something else. So I figured we would talk about Sam's for a little bit and then talk about Alex's for a little bit, just because Sam launched his first. And maybe that will get some folks maybe interested that they want to participate in those vinyl tags, or if you have vinyl tag burnout, that's okay too. So, Sam, why don't you tell folks about your Americana vinyl tag, and we'll sort of start there.
Well, as of now, I'm looking at the playlist now on my YouTube channel. The playlist has 8 videos, but one of them is mine, just to have, the context. So I've got 7 entries so far. Well, responses, and I know of at least 1 or 2 more that are coming. But I was surprised with the fact that people actually did it. I think Mazzy's planning to do one.
Yep.
I saw him double down on, because Harry from Harry's Music Room actually challenged Mazzy on his his video. So, and like I said, he's done it a few times. So hopefully, with some of the larger channels, it will, pick up. I'd like to see, a dozen or so, but I'm surprised I have this many.
What a great Ponzi scheme question that was to leave off the.
That's great.
The question, I'd be like, I want to hear you challenge 3 of your friends to do a great job.
But yeah, with like to actually talk about like the actual the tag itself. I mean, it's 20 questions. All the prompts are in the description of my original video, and it's just a fun way to, again, like a lot of these things, to dig deeper in your collection and not always show like the same records that you would normally show on your channel. Like for me, like I'm always showing Americana stuff, but if I do something like the vinyl tag that Rob Walker did, a lot of that stuff, I mean, a female artist, like I don't normally show, I showed that and things like that, or Alex's Prog tag. I mean, you just pull out stuff that you don't normally do. And, a lot of us will, say, oh, our collection has, 800 records in it. And then we're only showing the same 100. So like, there's a whole lot of collection behind us, like to look pretty on the wall, that we're not showing. And so that, again, it's not an ego thing. It's not a, subscriber thing, because I don't ask for subscribers in it. And frankly, I haven't really picked any up from it, but it's just a way to, dig deep into the collection, like any of these things are, and just to talk more about music in different ways.
So what I thought we'd do is we should go around the whole. We've all picked some Americana albums and some Prog albums, so we don't need to answer any of Sam's questions specifically. But why don't we show an Americana record and say something about it, and we'll just go around the horn. You guys good with that?
Yeah, perfect.
Well, Sam should go first because it's his tag.
Well, I'll go first, and it will also double down as an advertisement for another video that I've already posted as well. And again, Americana is very open-ended. Like a lot of people have been talking about, like it can run the gamut of, almost like post bluegrass kind of stuff to, that's Bud Light. You can see how weak it is. But no, like again, like it can go for something like a Billy Strings. The people that know Billy Strings, he's kind of become like a Grateful Dead in terms of his following. And he's on the nitty gritty. If you just put him on a record and didn't see his audience, he's almost a straight ahead bluegrass player. But then he brings in these elements live with some prog. I saw him back in March last year, and he had like a Pink Floyd segment almost, where there were like lasers and lights, and there was like a 10-minute jam. And people are, doing funny things in the audience. So it's like it's picked up a lot of different groups. But then it also runs, like some people say the founders are the band, like some of the founders of Americana, the band with Bob Dylan in the late 60s. So it can run this huge gamut. I mean, country music, outlaw music, bluegrass music, Southern rock-ish to an extent. But I'm going to go with a group that I talk about a lot, that I never get any traction with, but I will show them. And all of these records are ones that I didn't show in the tag because my collection's full of crap. So this is the Wild Feathers. And this
Why are you showing that one, Sam?
Well, stay tuned, boys. This is their most recent album called Alvarado, which is a town in Texas, which a lot of these guys are from Texas. They're now based in Nashville. If you like, and honestly, I don't know, Rob, if you've ever listened to these guys, but
I hadn't until your video that I'm sure you're going to talk about. So then I went and investigated, and I am quite intrigued.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they do
right in my wheelhouse.
they have this is the most recent album. It's all original stuff. 3 lead singers in the group that at one time were all in different bands, like small bands, like independent guys, and then they got together. And I watched an interview today where they said they just kind of got together after doing like the Nashville scene, bar hopping, and all these guys were hanging out backstage doing these clubs where they would do like a 10-minute set each. And so like they were hanging out backstage and they'd be like, all right, you're up for your 10 minutes, you're up for your 10 minutes or whatever. And they finally like crossed paths and like, hey, we sound pretty good together. And they jammed. And so that they're harmony wise, think the Eagles, maybe a little CSNY. It's got the grit of some Tom Petty records. But they have, country elements, all that stuff. But Rob, the record that you need to try is it's a studio album, but it's really just a compilation of B-sides and covers that never made it out called Medium Rarities. And they do a version of a Jayhawks tune on there.
Ooh.
So again, I've listened to some Blue Rodeo. I've listened to the Sadies, the Jayhawks, again, Eagles. They cover that. They are in that wheelhouse. So I think, Rob, this would be like another, like, if you get tired of listening to all those Blue Rodeo records, you'd be like, I need a Blue Rodeo part 2 with a Texas sound to it. Then check out the Wild Feathers. And this is cool. And they're the guys on the back. Really, really tight unit. This is on a really cool vinyl there. But again, as you guys know, I have been in touch with Ricky Young, one of the lead singers. This guy right here, and he posted that he was selling a lot of his gear and was getting rid of a Gibson guitar that he recorded their second album with, and he toured that whole tour from 2016 to 2019. This was like his touring guitar, and I bought it, and
it's friggin' beautiful, man.
So sick.
I can't believe I'm holding it, and again.
Can you just play something there? Come on.
What is it? A J45?
It's a J45 60s custom.
Nice.
Nice job, Rob. Holy
shit. It's beautiful. I mean, it's got the road wear on it. It's but he said, and the strings are a little bit dead, but these are the strings that he was like on the end of that tour. It's like these he didn't change them since 2019. So these are the strings that he was touring with for that show. And actually, I got in touch because I'm part of a fan group online. I got connected with their old roadie who toured with them on that tour, talking about and this, again, guitar nerd talk, the pegs down here. You notice only one of them is white, which is the original. Like, that's what came with the guitar. But apparently, I talked to the roadie. I was like, hey, I'm curious, why did these all get replaced? And he said there was one night of the tour where he was playing and like a string broke and it completely screwed it up. Yeah. So they got these replacements. And so to me, that's part of the story, because you can see videos and everything on YouTube of him playing, and like they're all the white pegs, but I'm guessing at the very end of the tour, it had been worn down, because this thing was brand new when he bought it. But again, you can't see it, but it's covered in little dings, which I learned is called guitar rash. On the back.
We call it road rash up here.
Road rash, yeah, road rash. You can't really see it.
Not really.
No. But that's awesome. It's the character, it's the story.
Right now, the strings,
the history.
The strings are a little dead, so like it doesn't sound the greatest. But he sent along new strings, and I have several packs of the strings that I like here. But it does have a pickup in it. You can see that it's battery operated, unfortunately, but I bought it from him. He sent me all sorts of cool stuff. Like pics and a nice note that I'm going to frame. When I take these strings off, I'm going to frame them with the note.
Yeah, good
kind
call.
of on the bottom.
Yeah, good idea.
That's awesome.
But it's killer. It's just like I opened it last night. I got it about 7:30 last night, and I was just staring at it before I touched it. Like, I opened the case and was just looking. I was like, before I bought it, like before it got here, I was watching YouTube videos all over, like looking at this guitar and like hearing what it sounded like, him playing it. And because this was swapped around, like all the guys in the band were playing it like on radio broadcasts and things like that. And even like their one of their touring guitarists, like on one radio broadcast, is playing it. So it's not even Ricky playing it on that one. But and it's neat to see the progression of it and to like watch this little piece of paint like progress over time, like how it was like in the early part of the tour, just brand new, and then it's gotten torn up over time. But I'm very happy to have this, even if I never played this, which I will. Just the fact that I have this is just unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable that I have it.
It's so sick.
That is so cool, man.
All right, that's already
I'm so happy for you.
That's already my find of the year. I mean, there's nothing that's going to top that. Nothing.
Holy crap!
That I can afford.
Unless you got one of Dylan's guitars.
Yeah, like I said, that I can afford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the time I almost bought a guitar that was owned by Brad Whitford from Aerosmith, and then I stupidly didn't do it, and I had kicked myself for 17 years that I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it was a Telecaster, and I have a bit of a thing for Telecasters, as people can see.
Do you?
Yeah, I have 7 of them. So,
but like, I mean, in all seriousness, though, everybody needs to check them out. They are just straight ahead rock and roll. I mean, they're fantastic. I mean, I love them. And this record in particular is just so well produced. This was their first one on New West Records. So it's a pretty good label. And that Ricky did tell me that they do have another album pretty much in the can that's produced by Shooter Jennings, who is he's the son of Waylon Jennings. And he's got a show on Sirius XM and has his own solo career, but he said it's gonna be really, really good. So stay tuned.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh yeah.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go. I'll jump in. So, I did not respond.
Anyway.
I did not respond formally to Sam's tag, and a lot of that I think is, well, I don't have the the collection for it, and it's not a particular style of music for me that I just have a big collection of. But similar to when we were talking before we jump, we're kind of talking about like prog, right? And the idea is like when you're talking about these specific genres, right? Like very, very rarely do they operate within a vacuum or a silo just on their own, right? Like, and depending on who you ask, you'll get a lot of different answers based on what their listening experiences are and otherwise, right? So, as Sam's talking about Americana, I'm sitting there going, well, like I don't have hardly any music that features a banjo. But like I have a fair amount of like what one would call like folk or like roots rock or a lot of that kind of stuff. And so I'm hoping we'll look at these a little bit flexibly in the sense of like I don't really know if this is what you would call like Americana, but at the same time, it's like joke all the time. Like some people will call Steely Dan jazz, but like if you're a jazz aficionado, you're probably not going to call Steely Dan jazz. So like. It's kind of one of those things. But I guess my first pick, he's one of my favorite singer-songwriters of all time. I think was just huge in the early to mid 70s. Call him Americana, call him, I guess, kind of more rootsy, whatever, call it rock. I don't really know. And I don't know if it fits, but I don't care. But one of my favorites is Jackson Browne.
Absolutely, that fits.
Yeah.
I almost pulled the Jackson Browne record to talk about tonight, but I didn't.
Hell yeah, good. Well, I'm glad you didn't, so that I could and not feel bad about it.
I knew you were going to do it. You see.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was nice to see this record sort of making the rounds in a couple of the general vinyl tag videos that's celebrating 50 years this year. So this is Late for the Sky, 1974. I love this album, but I also love each of those like first 5 or whatever that he did. But for me, as someone who I always wonder, and this is no disrespect to people like James Taylor, like I love James Taylor, but to me, when you are like looking at songwriters, there really is there's not a contest between Jackson Browne as a songwriter and James Taylor as a songwriter, but James Taylor will sell out like mega stadiums and Jackson Browne will open for him. And that's always something that I think has made me like Jackson more, just because he has never been viewed in that same way as some of the, he's always been like tier 2, so to speak, right? Like he's just under that sort of big realm. But
Well, that's how I got into him, because I'm a big Eagles fan, and he was friends with the Eagles, wrote stuff for the Eagles, but he was a step below. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And, I just think of again, the content of his songs and the story and, specifically this record, one of the big reasons it's my favorite, Before the Deluge is one of my favorite songs of all time. For a Dancer is just amazing. I mean, again, just brilliant songwriting about just sort of, the final dance that we all do on our own. Talking about things that not a lot of other, 22 or 24-year-olds were talking about. Not on this record, but, the famous story is that These Days he wrote when he was 16. And, it's a whole song about growing old and, all those different things. And so, yeah, I'm a huge Jackson Browne fan, and kind of, I guess, my first choice when it comes to this sort of this conversation. So
you just made Rich Strickler very happy. I'm sure that's his.
Yeah, he might have been the one who showed this. I think. Yeah.
No, he's on hiatus. I showed it.
Right. Yeah.
I showed it.
Jason, is Jason up?
So, real quick, and I've mentioned this before, but my first concert after COVID was Jackson Browne opening for James Taylor. Oh, cool. And I'll say that from thing, it was incredible because again, first show after COVID, 10,000 people in this venue, and then Jackson Browne opens with the song "I'm Alive," which was from his 1991 album, the same name. And Jackson had COVID pre any kind of treatment, so he had COVID early. So to hear that in a room of 10,000 people as the opener was just incredible. And again, Jackson, for all James Taylor's worth, Jackson Browne just kicked his tail. I mean, he was just incredible.
Well, and not to, go on the aside, but, and I love James Taylor. There's nothing wrong with James Taylor is great, but I think a very common example of James Taylor had 3 songs that were just so big everywhere that that just carried him obviously through so much of the stuff. And I think Jackson's kind of career is a little bit more breadth than depth. I don't know.
It wasn't pop. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But
and James Taylor was an interpreter of a lot of songs too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I saw Jackson last summer. Yeah, I think it was last summer here. And what was funny is he actually opened up with a interpretation of "Don't Let Us Get Old," which is a later career Warren Zevon song. And I love Warren Zevon, and he opens with this, and I just got chill because Jackson and Warren were really close. He produced his first couple of records, and so for him to open with that, I was like, this is the best. So yeah, huge JB fan.
Damn it, I feel so bad that I have James Taylor albums but no Jackson Browne albums now.
You should feel bad. Makes you a bad person.
Such a loser.
You're not a bad person. You just have a bad personality.
Since you're the expert here, Sam, Roy wants to know, would we consider the Byrds Americana? I would. They're on the fringes.
They're on the fringes. Yeah. I mean, definitely Sweetheart of the Radio Post. Yeah. Not pre Sweetheart at all. Because the album right before Sweetheart was Notorious Bird Brothers, which is pretty kind of psyche because that album kind of.
Well, that's just what French Vinyl Addict's saying. They went from folk to psych then country.
Well, that's the thing. They said that the Byrds they invented folk rock essentially into the masses. They invented country rock. They were on the fringe of psych rock. So they were at the beginning of all that. But anyway, yeah.
What do you got for us, Jason?
When you announced this tag, I had one album that came to mind right away, and it made me want to do the tag, and I still might do it. I asked these guys earlier, Rob, I was like, when you see a tag video, here's a question for the gallery and everyone else. When you see a tag video, there's 20 questions or however many there is. Let's say there's 20. How many do you have to have answers for you to justify doing the tag video? Is it 50%? 2? Anyway, so whatever. At the end of the day, the one album that I want to show, I have a bunch here, but the one that came to mind right away, it's the reason why I know the word Americana. So I know it fits for sure. And anyway, whatever. I'll stop fucking rambling and just tell you the damn album. And that's Gillian Welch, Dave Rawlings. Well, Gillian Welch's album, and this is The Harrow and the Harvest. I would say this, and I didn't coin this phrase. I got it, I think, from Chance Concert Buddy, but I call this a firebox album. Like if my house is on fire and I'm leaving, this is coming with me. This album is absolutely incredible. Not to mention, like, you know, from the audiophile nerd aspect of me, the sound of this album and the recording, and they're notorious, these two, for putting out great sounding recordings, is one of the best in my collection. I freaking love this album. The artwork, the cover, favorite cover I own. Absolutely favorite cover I own. Great cover. Unbelievable stuff. And I don't remember in which order this album is of hers, but it's been around for a while now. Anyway, I had to wait for it to be repressed, and it finally happened, and I got it. And this one here screams Americana, and everything this woman does, I'm all in. What I haven't done yet is I haven't delved into Dave Rawlings, her partner's catalog, because he puts out his own stuff and she works with him, but it's released under his name. Yep. She does her stuff. He works with, anyway, so incredible stuff. And when Sam said Americana, I was like, boom, Gillian Welch. And forgive me, people, I know Steve, I see that in the comments there. I know you love her too. I don't know if it's Jillian or Gillian, and someone called me out in a video once for pronouncing it wrong.
I've been hearing, since the tag, I've been hearing Gillian.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, my favorite Americana artist album I own, I will friggin' eventually, I'll be a completist to hers for sure. Soul Journey is another great one. I know actually a fair bit from her. I found this artist out like a couple decades ago when I was trying to research an album for actually a girlfriend at the time who was big into like Sarah McLachlan and the Lilith Fair movement. I was like, I'm going to find you another wicked female artist, and this is the one that I found. I found the Time the Revelator album, and which is great, but this one by far in her catalog is my favorite. So Gillian Welch, whatever, The Harrow and the Harvest. Honest to God, if I could recommend like 5 albums from my collection for people to own, this is in the conversation every time.
So according to Wikipedia on her page, it is with the hard G.
I don't even know what that means.
It's Gillian.
It is Gillian.
Yeah.
All right.
It says G as in guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you watch Harry Music Room? His response?
Not yet. No. Did he do that?
He tells a cool Gillian Welch. I'll just say Gillian Welch, David Rawlings story that you'll appreciate. I won't give it away, but check out Harry's video.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my big pick, and that is the driving force behind my understanding of Americana is that album.
Very
Go
cool.
ahead, Rob.
All right. I did Sam's tag the other day.
Man,
I didn't quite follow the instructions.
I got to give a shout out again to Rob here. Rob's entry to this was one of my favorite friggin' videos that Rob has ever made. If not, like I don't remember one.
I don't think it was that good.
No, man, it was so well done. You put so much time and effort into that, and I think it just deserves a special shout out. It was beautifully done. And of course, the Canadian aspect really obviously struck a nerve with me. Carry on.
What this proves is that I bring out the best in people.
That
of course.
Is true.
I did my hair just for you today, Sam.
You did. I'll see. Well done.
So I was obviously going to jump on Sam's tag. I'm not going to do Alex's because I don't know squat about Prog, but I support his tag nonetheless. But because it's Sam's, I got to do it. But as I said on my video, I don't always follow instructions. So
yeah, I like that.
I put a bit of a spin on it. I always jokingly say that I'm the Ben Rankins of Canada. For those of you that don't know Ben Rankins, he's in Australia and is the expert on Australian music. Well, I kind of like to think I'm maybe not the expert, but I know a hell of a lot about Canadian music. So I answered all of Sam's questions with Canadian music because there is, and Jason can attest to this, there is a certain Canadian sound. That's one thing. And there is a Canadiana subgenre that is very, very, very similar to Americana, draws on the same elements, folk, country, roots. It blends all that together very much in the same way that Americana does. So I answered those exact questions from north of the border. So But I do have some American artists tonight, just to show that I'm not solely one-dimensional. When I think of Americana, the name that pops into my head first all the time, Levon Helm.
I've heard of him.
You may have. So Levon Helm from the band, he built a studio in Woodstock, New York. Basically, it's a really nice barn. And they used to have these things called the Midnight Rambles, where if you were around with a guitar and you knew Levon, you'd come and you'd have a hell of a jam at these rambles they would put on. So this particular album is him taking his band and having one of his rambles, but it's at the Ryman Auditorium, and it is a fantastic show. This is an incredibly scarce, hard to find record, by the way, but they do some stuff by the band and they do some other sort of Americana classics. And it's, if you know Levon Helm, this is exactly what you would think it is. And it's just an outstanding record by one of my favorite musicians, and quite squarely falls into that Americana definition, I think. So.
Plus, you have Larry Campbell all over that record, who I love.
True. The only drawback to this is Billy Bob Thornton's on it, and he's a wanker. But
yeah, I agree, Rob.
No French Frat Taters on that album.
He's a wanker for many reasons. Let me catch up on a few comments here. Where was I? Roughly. Dan says Surefire Soul Ensemble is one of the newest American vintage bands. I've never heard of them, so can't comment on that either.
Sounds good.
They're a
Surefire. Hang on a second.
It sounds like they'd be something off Coal Mine, yeah?
Yeah.
Surefire.
Jason, Roy wants to know if you listened to Time, the Revelator by Gillian Welch.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it after or just before he commented, but yeah, that was the first album that I learned about. Was that one?
JT gave me that on CD.
Nice.
Jason's cabins. Well, they got to build
Up in
it
the
out
Appalachia.
They got to build it out of logs like that to keep Sasquatch away.
Hey, like I tell Glenn, I gave Glenn a poster when he came to visit here. When you're down here, it's Appalachia. And I gave him a phonetic poster that says Appalachia, CHUH.
God.
To John's question, and this was answered, I want to give the credit where it's due to JWG. But the big one, Oscar Peterson is, Oscar Peterson is the most talented jazz pianist ever. I mean, his technique and everything was out of control. And I think he's from Montreal. I mean, I
think so.
Quebec, as they say.
And you have Diana Krall.
Yep.
Mrs. Costello.
Yep. Trevor, North Americana. There you go. That's what it is.
Good. I like that.
What else are you saying? I'm of course, but many others as well. Oscar Peterson. Yeah, we just talked about that. Tragically Hip, so classic Canadian. Yeah, I don't know that they necessarily fall into the Canadiana. I mean, they're more. I mean,
they're very Canadian.
They're incredibly Canadian, but there's a distinction between the umbrella term for Canadian music and Canadiana being.
They have songs that would definitely go into that realm for sure.
Are they as Canadian as the Bare Naked Ladies?
Bare Naked Ladies suck.
The Bare Naked Ladies are. There's some redeeming qualities there, but Steve highlighting the hip is a good. It's always good to talk about the hip. I love the hip. Rob, you don't like the hip though, do you?
I don't. Listen, I appreciate that they are the most important band in this country in the last 30 years.
Yeah,
without question.
Yeah,
they typify our national identity without question. I'm just not a fan. I no disrespect to the late Gord Downie, but I can't stand his voice.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I don't own anything yet. I've just been kind of like the vinyl's just so bloody expensive for albums that but they did release, and Steve knows this, but they did re-release their Your Favorites ones, which is basically their greatest hit stuff. And I have that on CD. And when I got that, I just couldn't stop friggin' playing it over and over again. I grew up in like the peak time of that band, right? And it was pretty special. Saw them a couple times. Saw them open for the Rolling Stones, actually.
Wow.
Dan says you should all listen to Steppenwolf Seven, it's a very Americana album. I love Steppenwolf. I don't have that one, but I've got a few of their albums here.
Dan, I wrote down the soul. What was that? Surefire Soul Ensemble. Is that what he said?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just wrote that down.
John says, Sam, I haven't finished your video. Do you bring up Tom Petty at any point?
I do not.
John, you'll have to watch and see. That's the whole point of making the video.
But I will be the first to say Tom Petty is not Americana. Tom Petty is not. He did some acoustic stuff, but he's not Americana.
Good thing you said that. I would have put that in the video.
Well, I guess let's remove that from our list then, Jason. Jesus.
Yeah. Damn it, I failed.
Good thing we didn't do the tag.
Yeah. I'm too nervous now.
I know.
How dare you put yeah.
I'll tell you right now.
You kids. Yeah.
Apparently, John's going to see Diana Krall tomorrow night. Awesome.
Costello.
John Fogerty was so American he got sued by his label for being himself, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
The hip never broke into the States. Yeah, unfortunately, very few artists from here do, unfortunately.
All we get is Bieber.
I like and wish I had $1 million. Yes, I absolutely do wish I had $1 million, but I have no respect for the Bare Naked Ladies were fine when Stephen Page was in the band because he was the only musical talent in that band. What's his name? Ed Robertson. He's a goof. I've seen the Bare Naked Ladies, and yeah, whatever.
Stephen Page's voice is pretty awesome.
Your favorite Bare Naked Ladies moment is when Brian Wilson, the same Brian Wilson.
My favorite Bare Naked Ladies moment involved actual Bare Naked Ladies. So, and not a bunch of guys pretending to be naked ladies.
Is that us? That's why we're the
Are
waist
you
up.
shitting me? Steve got to play pool with Gore in the band.
God.
Good Lord.
Why are we just hearing this now, Steve?
Oh my goodness.
That's on his Patreon. What? He talks about
it.
Yeah. Jesus. That's incredible. All right. Let's do round 2, I guess. Sam, what do you got for us?
This is an album that I need to familiarize myself more with, but I wanted to showcase it because, first of all, it was a surprise that I found this record, and it's going to mean absolutely nothing to you guys. But
if it means something to you, it means something to us.
Oh, thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
This is a guy on Ramser Records, and if anybody knows any Avett Brothers history, Ramser is the label out of Concord, North Carolina, where the Avett started, and they do a lot of North Carolina-based acts. And one of them is this guy named David Childers. He's an older gentleman in his mid-60s now, probably.
Right, it means nothing to us.
Right, yeah, right. So, all right, that's
I'm kidding, Sam.
Alex is
an asshole.
No, this guy is cool because I saw David open for the Avetts in March of 22, and they used to open for him in the bars in North Carolina, and he's got this really kind of a deep, almost like a guttural voice, but it's got a nice rasp to it. This is an album called Run Skeleton Run. The title track is fantastic. It starts, if you're familiar with the Americana Johnny Cash records, there are some songs where he starts where he's reading poetry or a passage from the Bible or something like that, kind of through a megaphone. This starts with Scott Avett reading something about the apocalypse, essentially, and he's reading from the Bible, and then it goes into this rock and rockabilly song called Run Skeleton Run that David Childers is singing. The Avetts play a couple of backing instruments on this, but there's some really, really pretty stuff on here. There's a rocking song called Radio Moscow. Greasy Dollar is a cool song. And I think the artwork was actually by, I think that might be a Scott Avett art piece, but I found this down at a record store called Mad Jack's. I don't know if Rob, you've ever been there in Charlotte. If you next time you're in Charlotte, Rob, you need to search out Mad Jack's because it is just the dude has the most insane prices. They're just so good. And this album is this was a limited run album. I bought this thing for $10. And
what's it called? Mad Jack's?
Mad Jack's. Yeah. And it's cool because the label is it looks like a bat, but it's got his face on the bat. Just a really, really cool store. Mad Jack's Records. You have to go. I bought some there's some really, it's all clean stuff. I mean, I bought some really cool Monkey stuff in there. I bought some really cool Bee Gees, like early Bee Gees stuff. That's where I got my copy of Cucumber Castle was there for you Bee Gees fans. But anyway, David Childers is awesome. He opened for the AVETs when they were just coming up, and now he's like opening for them. He's still pretty local to North Carolina. He plays breweries down there, but he also plays, smaller arenas.
It's 6 minutes from my office.
Yeah, Rob, you have to go. It is that was like the cleanest bunch of records that I've ever got. I think I might have gotten an out of print John Mellencamp album there that is worth a good bit, but I bought it for like $20. But he's a cool guy. He's also got some memorabilia in there that you can buy. And actually, I think there was a poster in there, a Marillion poster for you Marillion people. And I remember I texted Steve at All the World's a Stage. I was like, hey, look what I see. And come to find out, I'm pretty sure that Art, the North Carolina vinyl picker, bought it the next week because he lives down there, like outside of Asheville.
Makes sense. He loves Marillion,
so he bought that poster like the week after I was there. But anyway, yeah, David Childers, kind of a gruff voice, but it's like he rocks. He's got just like a kind of a rockabilly sound to his music, but it's really, really good stuff. So that's my number 2 Americana piece.
Cool. Alex, you're up.
Well, now that there's a lot of pressure about if mine are going to be even considered to be Americana,
I'm kind of feeling that.
The White Album doesn't count, Alex.
All right. Well,
no, show your stuff.
Well, okay, but I think though, there's a lot of artists that, it's like, is so-and-so Americana? Okay, maybe we can't answer that great, but we can identify certain records or certain phases in their career that we could be like, oh, that was their Americana phase. And I think one of the bands that comes to mind immediately for that is Working Man's Dead, American Beauty from the Grateful Dead. Now, I love all eras of the band. I know there's a lot of people who are I think a lot of people who are probably more picky with the Grateful Dead probably gravitate more towards this era. And so, which I totally get because I really love this. I love I love American Beauty as well. And, I love their site stuff. I love their, if we talk about Prog later, I fully believe there's an argument that like Grateful Dead or Prog, specifically in their Mars Hotel and Blues for Allah period. But the two sort of records that just go hand in hand perfectly. Love this stuff. I mean, just great harmonies. I know it's the kind of one of the overblown singles, but I love Uncle John's Band. I mean, I think that is a perfect song. And, I can only imagine going back to whatever it was, 70, 71 when these came out. And like, if you're coming from like a Grateful Dead and you heard these, you'd be like, what happened? But
Direwolf.
Oh yeah. But it's like, I love that stuff. So that'll actually, I think, inform some of my other picks too, of like, it probably debated whether or not they're quote unquote Americana, but they certainly had these phases or these certain experiences that I think they dabbled in that world. So for me, those were sort of two records that came immediately to mind for that. So
I had them pulled, and I listened to Working Man's Dead last week the whole way through. What a friggin' phenomenal album!
It's great.
And I told Rachel, because Rachel did the stream this morning, and she showed American Beauty, and I told her that seeing Ripple by Dead & Company was like a highlight for me. But they also did Uncle John's Band that night, which was just so good with John Mayer on the lead. Just kill it. That was, again, a top moment seeing those songs live. Yeah.
And for all you label nerds out there, which means I'm talking to Jason, it is, or maybe Steve Westman, right? It's, you want the olive green Warner Brothers, man. I got it. If you don't, right? Am I a cool YouTuber? If you don't got the olive green Warner Brothers, you're not cool, man. I'm kidding. And it's in this fancy sleeve, man. Olive green Warner Brothers.
Get the fresh air.
You're scratching my itch.
Quote, what do we say? Don't fuck with the palm trees. If you want Warner Bros, you got to go with the olive green, man. That's for you, Steve and Jason.
That's scratching Jason right where he itches.
Maybe Steve will invite me on his stream one of these days, since I, called out the olive green Warner Brothers label, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Now you're legit.
No, I'm in.
Look at this Music Sanctuary. Another
Look
one.
at that. Jesus.
Wow.
Awesome.
Oops. Dan says the first 5 or 6 REM albums have some Americana aspects. Yeah, I think that's probably true. What's more American than Lauren Green in the 60s?
Wow.
Yeah.
Lauren Green. He's Canadian too, which is funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tom Petty is one of the strongest, most resonant artists connecting the 70s to the current Americana. Yeah.
And see, the cool thing about Petty, I mean, you look at guys like Wilco or the Wild Feathers, Petty directly influenced the Avett Brothers. He directly influenced those guys.
Yep.
So John's right with that. He was a connector.
Record Hound, he says, I'm just lurking, but a fellow Canadian. He'll be listening for a while. We'll try not to let you down then. And everyone says hi, and everyone says hi. And Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks, early American. I don't know that one. I don't know that American. You know that one, Sam?
I know. I've heard of Dan Hicks, but I think of his Hot. I think of because Emmylou Harris's band was called the Hot Band.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
That's a great name, Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks. I like that.
And his band.
Flaming Groove listens, has seen the Dead a lot of times.
Yeah, they
don't settle for the palm trees. Southern Accents could have been an Americana album. Rebels, Southern Accents, Spike, The Beat. Everything.
Yeah, but then Dave Stewart touched it.
Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. Sure.
Vance, how the hell are you, man?
All right, Jason, you're up.
Okay, we got the Record Hound there. Has just inspired me to choose a Canadian pick.
Oh boy!
All right, I don't know, Sam, if it's going to qualify. I think it kind of does. I would call him more outlaw country, and I've mentioned his name on the channel many times before. But that's Colter Wall. So Colter Wall, Canadian, Saskatchewan singer-songwriter. If I ever do an artist spotlight, my first one's going to be Colter Wall. I'm just going to pick up a few more of his albums first, but this guy, I heard him. Here's some Canadian stuff for you, for all the Canadians out there. Driving home one day from work, and you know how like the CBC radio will play like clips of songs to end like a certain segment just to kill time. Well, they played one of Colter Wall's songs, and I went online. I was Googling the shit out of what possibly the CBC was playing at the time, because I didn't have Soundhound going or anything like that. Didn't have Shazam, so I was like trying to figure it out. Figured it out that it was this young guy named Colter Wall. Googled it. There's actually like wicked YouTube videos of, I think it's like there's that beer called Original 16 or something. Rob, I think. And anyway, so there's if you search Colter Wall Original 16 on YouTube, it's like just him, in high production value, but just him with a guitar singing, and it's just mind blowing. The guy is, I don't even think he's 30 yet. And he sings with a voice that sounds like he's like 70. He is, I can't get enough of this dude. If you follow him on Instagram, anyone that follows Colter Wall on Instagram, you want to talk about an authenticity and a cowboy. Like this guy is still posting pictures of him working the family ranch in Saskatchewan, riding horses, branding cattle, like doing the full thing. It's almost like music is almost like a side job for the guy. I can't get enough of him. I can't stop talking about this guy. And anyway, so one of the first records I bought when I got a record player was his EP that came out, Imaginary Appalachia, whatever the hell it is. Anyway, so this is a self-titled that came next. Anyway, the songs on this, Kate McCannon. Check out the song Kate McCannon by Colter Wall. That's a murder ballad, right? A murder song, which, they're always kind of interesting. And it's actually a little almost hard to take sometimes because it's a man killing a woman. So you don't really want to, enjoy that. However, it's beautifully done. He covers a Townes Van Zandt song, who we talked about last week, Snake Mountain Blues. Anyway, great guy, amazing style. He tours with a full band. So it kind of sounds a little more country leaning, but I would say that just based on his songwriting style, his guitar picking, things like that, it bleeds into Americana almost more than Canadiana. Like I think there's more of an American vibe to some of the stuff he does, but I'll fly the Canadian flag for him all day long. Anyway, Coulter Wall, I would have put him in the tag if I was motivated enough to help Sam out with the tag. But anyway, Coulter
Isn't
Wall.
that nice to hear your friends are too lazy to help you out, Sam?
Yeah, sorry.
Look, I'm used to it. All my friends throughout the gamut of time. That's why I moved to YouTube, thinking that it couldn't get lazier than just sitting on your butt on YouTube, but apparently it can.
Just remember, Glenn and I had your back on this one.
You did very early. You did. You're two of the 7.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go next.
Oh, Mazzy has a question.
Oh, where is he? Oh boy, let's get him up here. Mazzy, if you had watched my video, I responded to all of Sam's questions with Canadiana answers. So I know you don't watch my stuff because you're way too famous for that. But if you had, you would have seen 20 answers that were all Canadian.
Music Talk with John. Look at his question there. Because
he's from New Jersey.
There you go. Nebraska. Absolutely.
I think there's an argument there. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, for sure.
Like New Jersey's not a part of the country.
Yeah, you're not going to watch my video, Mazzy. Give me a break.
Have you seen Jersey Shore?
I'm so flattered to think you would, but listen.
It's the thought that counts.
But I think, you know what? But Mazzy would watch yours because Mazzy loves that type of music, Rob.
Oh, maybe.
So he might not love you.
Yeah.
Well,
but he loves
Brennan Barrett. Yeah.
My mother barely even loves me, so All right, I'm going next.
Do it.
Oh, that's Jason. I want to put my big face up here.
No, I want to be around.
All right. I was going to show Long Branch Penny Whistle, but I'm not going to show Long Branch Penny Whistle because Mazzy has inspired me to fly the Canadian flag.
You might get banned if you show that.
I'm gonna fly the Canadian flag again. I showed this in my video, but I want to talk about this record some more. This is a very talented young woman named Kendall Carson. Full disclosure, she is a friend of mine. Not a good a friend, not like I call her.
Who don't you know?
I know a lot of people. This is an absolutely fantastic Americana record. She's from she lives on Vancouver Island, but at this time when this came out in 2009, she was signed to a record company in New York called Trainwreck Records, and that's owned by a guy named Chip Taylor, who's the guy that wrote Wild Thing, and he also wrote Angel of the Morning. And this is her second record. Came out in 2009. She's a fiddle player, and this is just a fantastic Americana record. So it's her singing, her playing the fiddle, Chip on the acoustic guitar, John Platania, who is Van Morrison's guitar player, playing lead guitar and an electric. There's a drummer and a bass player. I don't know who the hell they are. But this is a great Americana folk record. I absolutely love it. I can't get enough of it. Signed it for me there. She is an incredibly talented session person as well. Right now, she plays with Alan Doyle, who was of the band Great Big Sea, but he's been out on his own for 10 years. She's been his fiddle player for 10 years. She's played with Elvis Costello. She's played with a ton of people and is wickedly, wickedly talented. She's also in an all-girl fiddle group called Belle Star. That, again, it's kind of that Americana stuff. I mentioned one of their albums as well. But this is an absolutely fantastic record. She has 3 solo records out on Trainwreck Records. The one before this, which was called Rearview Mirror Tears, this one, and then the third one, which was put out a couple years ago without her blessing because she had a bit of a dispute with the label and they parted ways and they released it without her blessing. But and it's not as good, but this one is absolutely outstanding. So
Mazzy gave a interesting compliment. I appreciate that, Mazzy.
Caught up on some comments. I'll do this tag next week. Seriously, better than any of the others. I will watch all of the Americana.
You got 7. You got 8 to choose from, Mazzy, including mine.
Be 9 if Jason would get off his butt.
Yeah,
I kind of want to do this one.
We're going to put the pressure on you, Jason.
And look, even if it's stuff that you can't show, like again, like if you post a video, put like the normal questions in the description for like whoever you call out to do it. But like if you don't have an album with like a banjo on it, show like I don't have a banjo, but this album has banjo on it. Like this album, you know, has
I'm just gonna show a picture of Glenn.
Just show Glenn. For any answer you don't have the thing to. Just like screenshots of the Cosmic Torpedoes videos.
John's being a smart ass.
Yeah.
Is that a young Rachel? No. John being a smart ass again?
Can we ban people like John?
We could,
John's
yeah.
awesome.
All right. Do we have so what are we at time wise here? We're at
the hour.
Do we have time to do one more round of Americana before we switch over to Alex's Prog topic?
I mean, that's what Mazzy wants to talk about. Probably is Prog. So
well, we got to keep him on the hook then, so they'll watch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
we need the viewing minutes. We'll do a lightning round here. Sam, you're up. Keep it under 3 minutes.
All right. This is a record.
Never an issue for Sam.
A record store day. Yeah. What did you say? Oh, okay. All right. Speaking of blocking people, you know, drink your pea water there, Alex.
Ass tea. It's ass tea.
This is an EP that came out for Record Store Day, and this band I got into because of Randall Nelson, Uncle Randy, as he's known to a lot of people. This is a duo called the Cactus Blossoms, and this is an EP called "If Not for You," where they cover 4 Bob Dylan tunes. And Randy showed them in his video. But if you like the Everly Brothers, I mean they are brothers. They're half brothers, I believe, because they have different last names. But Randy got me into them last year. They had an album, or 2 years ago now, going on 2 years, called One Day, which was really, really good. A couple songs, very Buddy Holly kind of sounding. But Randy, when he saw them live, he said they're actually a little bit more rock and live. Like they have a lot of electric guitars in their act. But this has 4 kind of deeper Bob Dylan cuts from the late 60s, early 70s. Like they do If Not For You, To Ramona, Went to See the Gypsy, which is a basement tape cut, and then Tell Me That It Isn't True, which is from Nashville Skyline from 1969. And Mazzy, I don't know if you know this EP, but you would like it a lot because he's a big Bobby fan. But this is a really, really cool EP. The production is really, really good. Jason, you would like the production on this because it's not quite as like cinematic as Lord Huron, but it's kind of got that airy production value to it with like the pedal steel guitars and everything. Just really, really good. Just check out the Cactus Blossoms. If not for you. And then
writing it down
just to show, because you know we're the vinyl community. Look at that cool vinyl.
Ooh, that's hot.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool. So Cactus Blossoms will be my pick.
Nice. I'll speed around. I have a couple here, and Sam's not going to like most of them. But that's okay. It's not about Sam. But you know, I know that this is not going to be considered Americana. I also don't care. He's also Canadian, so I don't care. But I wanted to show this because I had this CD when I was in high school, and I listened to the absolute hell out of it. And still to this day, it is my absolute favorites from this artist. And he's got a big catalog, and I love the vast majority of it. But this is Neil Young live at Massey Hall. Again, I know it's just acoustic folk rock. I mean, it's just him. But you know what? I freaking love it. And my favorite Neil Young is when it's just him and a guitar or him and a piano. That's my absolute 100%
favorite. Agree, man.
Yeah. And I love like the heavier stuff, Grandfather of Grunt stuff too. But there's that. Now,
Jason and I are required by law to own a copy of that.
You got to. This one, I want to give a shout out because Rob, I know you're a huge fan and I'm a huge fan, but every time I listen to them, I become a bigger fan, which makes me listen to them more. And it's just this ongoing cycle. I'll never miss a chance to shout out Dawes. Again, I mean, it's a little bit more like alternative folk rock, but I think Americana rock is totally in there.
Absolutely. It fits.
There's some twang there for sure. I think this is my favorite. I think it's my favorite, but who knows? And this is actually for Jason. Jason, I don't know. I think when you first posted your intro video, God, years ago at this point.
Well, it had to be. He's only done 3 videos, so.
I think you mentioned this band, and I was like, shit, I have to talk to Jason about that because nobody else talks about this band, but I love this band, and they're more indie folk, indie pop. They 1000% are band from Seattle. They're signed Sub Pop. Their first like 3 records are on Sub Pop. But this to me is one of the best acoustic live records of all time. I'm going to lump it into Americana because I can, and that is Band of Horses acoustic at the Ryman. I freaking love this record. Absolutely outstanding. Just vocals are just what I mean. I love this stuff. So yeah, indie folk. I mean, I think it does border a little bit on Americana too, especially this acoustic at the Ryman bit. I mean, it's the Ryman, it's acoustic, very pretty, got some twang to it, but yeah, I don't know. And then them just closing out with Neighbor. Neighbor is my favorite Band of Horses song, and they're just a cappella is just out of control good. So yeah, Band of Horses acoustic at the Ryman.
Very cool.
That's so awesome that you showed that. I was gathering the records for tonight, and I only own 2 vinyls. I only own 2 records of Band of Horses.
Owning them vinyls will get you kicked off this stream permanently.
I said that on purpose. Cease to Begin and everything. What is it?
Yeah, anyway, and those are the first 2. I mean, those are the ones to
but
have.
I couldn't see in the track list something that would qualify. And in my head, I'm like, acoustic at the Rhyme. If I only own that, because it's a lot softer and more kind of got the better kind of vibe to it. Anyway,
yeah,
that version of Funeral on that is next level, eh?
Anyway, Sam, I don't know Sam, I think you'd like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that you would. Well, you might like their other stuff, but I think you would love that live record.
I need to check it. They're one of those bands that always comes across my suggestions. Them and Fleet Foxes, and people talk about the Fleet Foxes all the time. I don't listen to them.
Same. That I haven't listened to them yet either. And
another Seattle band.
The algorithms tell me I should like them.
Yeah.
But okay, you know, it's weird because they probably came up because they're another Seattle band, or I think maybe they're Portland, but like, you know, between Fleet Foxes, Band of Horses, and Head and the Heart, I mean, a lot of those were sub pop bands from the Pacific Northwest. Not saying that they're close to the same, but like that indie folk sort of revival that was going on.
They were rubbing off on each other. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
And influencing each other at the same time. Yeah.
All right, Jason, what do you got?
The spit take.
Okay. Obvious choice here. Had to do it. But,
of
course.
So as soon as I see this cover, $1 Million Bash comes to mind. I freaking love that song. Ooh, baby. Anyway, I'm not going to sing.
Great song.
But it is so good. I can't put this on without listening to that song. And it's so good. And I love the story behind it. I love the fact that you got Dylan, you know, right after the peak of his friggin' powers, well, in the middle of his, you know, his major runs, right? And he's hanging out with these musicians, and you know, the majority being Canadian, so I gotta like that a little bit too. And they're just literally hanging out at like this house somewhere, recording music together, just jamming and having fun. Like, I don't know, it speaks to me of like this level of humility. Sure, it's, you know, they're putting an album out, so they're getting money, so it kind of kills a bit of the humility argument, but not entirely. These guys are just having fun and recording music, and of course, it's in the vein of obviously what I would consider Americana.
It's what you would call from back home out east. It's like a kitchen party.
Very well said. I think so, 100%. It's guys hanging out, playing music together, and reading about it and learning about it just makes me like it so much more. So yeah, the Basement Tapes.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, that's pretty much it. Like, I can't get enough of this. And the fact that the original vinyl tag jumping into a cover, someone, I forget whose video I watched, mentioned
somebody
this.
did, yeah.
Cool.
And whenever I heard that, I'm like, damn it, I should have chose this one.
Well, what's so cool about that record? Actually, funny. First of all, that's the only Bob Dylan album I don't own. But what's interesting is because I have the full Basement Tape bootleg series, but that album is not, because that album, so much of it was recorded in the 70s. I mean, that picture was taken in the 70s. Like, that wasn't from 68 or 69 whenever they were in Woodstock. Because like obviously like the band songs were recorded in the 70s that are just straight ahead band tunes. And then there were some overdubs, but yeah, it's the only one I don't own. I don't know why. I need to get it.
And that was one of the last Dylan records added to my collection. That is not the easiest record to find. I mean, you know, it's like there's a billion Dylan records, but that is one of the tougher ones to find out there. And usually it runs, you know, $30-$40 a lot of times. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a U.S. press. It's a repress, but it's a U.S. press, and it's actually I was super lucky. It's in fantastic shape too.
I was lucky to find one of these limited mobile fidelities when they put them out about 10 or 12 years ago.
That shot up big time, Rob.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
They just announced Mobile Fidelity they've just released Bob Dylan and the Band Before the Flood as a Mobile Fidelity pressing.
Yeah,
I have that one.
I don't have that one. They just did it. They just repressed it over. It's the only one I don't have. I'm not an audiophile, but for the band, I am.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my turn.
Your turn.
My turn. I'm gonna do like Alex. I'm gonna do lightning round. I got 3 quick ones. This is a band Sam talked about, but not this album. Uncle Tupelo.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, old country, but Americana. This is their what is this? 1990. No Depression. I think this was the one before Anodyne, if I remember. But if you like Anodyne, Sam, this could be part 1 and part 2. This is probably fantastic. I love it. Graveyard Shift, No Depression, Whiskey Bottle. Everything on here is just. Actually, I think I maybe like this maybe a little bit more than Anodyne. Really
what was cool, real quick, on Rod, the Happy Hippies Americana tag, Uncle Tupelo was the band that he said he wished that he could have seen live, and he's like telling them to get back together essentially. So
never happened, but it would be great if it did. And in a not too different vein, a band I've talked about before, the old 97s. I mean, they're Texas country rock, but there's some Americana aspects to that too. This is their 1997 Too Far to Care. This was their big label record, and it's amazing. It's my favorite song in here, Barrier Reef. A great record. And the last one I'm going to show for Jason.
Thank you.
Jason's just getting into the Sadies. This is the one, man.
Today started listening to them. Yeah.
So their first album is okay. Pure Diamond Gold sucks. Just don't even listen to it. This was the 3rd record. Tremendous Efforts. It's my favorite. Like this going back to 2001. But they've got like 12 records. The other thing you should know about the Sadies is they have done records with a ton of other people. They did the soundtrack for the Tales of the Rat Fink documentary. They were Nico Case's backing band. They did an album with John Langford. They did a blues album with somebody. They've done a whole bunch beyond just their own discography, but of their own albums, this one is bloody fantastic. Maybe they're probably their most Americana of all their records. My favorite song here is the one I told you to listen to, Loved on Look. It's an Elvis song, but the Sadies do it in a sort of very loud country rock kind of way. And the singer on that particular track is one Mr. Greg Keeler.
No way.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
All right. Tremendous Efforts. I will put that on. I got to tap out, fellas. I got something where I need to be right now.
All right.
Sorry I missed the Prog stuff. Definitely excited to hear about it. I'll rewatch the live after, but see you later.
All right, Jason. Thanks for Jason. All right, let me get caught up on some comments before we dive into Prog here. So
yeah, fuck Jason.
Pour one out for Jason.
Pour one out for Jason. I'll pour 2 out. Shit.
No, he's not worth 2. That's a lot of beer, Alex.
It's fair.
I think we were around here somewhere. Dan says there was this killer surf band in the 60s, the Impacts, and they had Merrill Fankhauser, who played steel guitar, and that was cool shit. Okay. Redbone. Is that Americana?
I think Dan is he's throwing out random bands.
Like Leon Redbone?
No, like the band Redbone that had the song. Was it Sharon Spending the Night Together, or was that Dr. Hook? What did Redbone sing?
You should get that album, John, the MoFi copy of Before the Flood. I got to pick it up somewhere.
Come and Get Your Love was Redbone.
Do you guys know about Area Code 615? Nashville session musicians made 2 great albums. No, I've never even heard of it.
No.
In typical Roy fashion, though, he's giving us something to look into. Roy really needs to come on one of these nights with us because the man's an encyclopedia. Area Code.
But it would be the biggest, like, just like mind-altering thing. We found out Roy is really like 15 years old and he just knows all this information, posing as
he's just making it all
the
up.
guy in Thailand. Yeah.
Dan says, I found the Lenny Rose CD, the Hallmark Sessions. He had a trio with Lee Van Helm and Rick Danko. Yeah, I heard about that. I hadn't heard it, though, so I don't know. Are you joking? He's got to be joking.
Yeah. Redbone War. Come and get your love.
Flamin' Groove listens. He's got all the 615 album. Cool. All right. Switching gears, we're going to talk about Prog. I know
I'd say
nothing about Prog, but Alex, why don't you tell people about your tag?
Sure.
Tell everyone that it's off to a rip-roaring start, and then talk about a Prog record, and we'll go around the horn again.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much, Rob. Well, for everybody out there,
big screen you first. Hold on.
Yeah.
There you go. The floor is yours.
Wow. All right. Well, so Sam out here being a leader in the community, starting the Americana tag, and obviously like very identifiable with him in terms of the music he's passionate about. And I would say into a lot of different music, but for me, I think if there was a genre that is most something that I gravitate towards, it probably is prog. So I created, I guess, a prog tag. It looks like the last one that was done was back in 2021. So I figured 3 years laid to rest was probably fine. But we brought it back. And, here's the thing for me, and I'm hoping this it allows it to be a little bit more open and inclusive to especially Sam and Rob, who are not proggers per se, is that I feel like fans of progressive rock have kind of shot themselves in the foot, because in one sense, they're always like, I can't believe other people aren't interested in this stuff. Oh, these guys should be huge. But in the other sense, we create such rigid boxes around what is prog, what defines prog. Is it prog? It's like, it's kind of created this element where like, it can't be progressive music if it's accessible. Like if it's good to listen to and there's good singers and there's a chorus and there's a hook, it can't be prog. And I think a little bit of my tag is trying to get away from that, of like, no, like let's get away from the term prog and more talk about music that's progressive. And I think if we look at it from that way, we sort of open up that we cast a much wider net in terms of what's included, who can be included, all that type of stuff. So that's kind of my way of approaching it, is that I think people get a little bit scared by prog, or they claim they don't know much about it. But I guarantee you, for both of your collections, I could go through and find records of like, this is prog, this is prog. We could talk about prog elements here, like all that type of stuff. So
you mentioned when you did your Beatles tag that you felt intimidated and maybe not. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, not qualified really to answer that because the Beatles fans are intimidating. That's exactly how I feel about prog. I don't know shit about prog. I know I've got a few records that I guess are classified as prog. So I would fit into that group that goes, if I wanted to explore it, and I'm not saying that I do at this particular juncture, but if I did, it's kind of like, where do you start? Because everyone has a different take on it. And to your point, I was like, well, that can't be because it's got a hook. You're absolutely right. The proggers don't necessarily make it that accessible, nor do the Beatles fans make it accessible because we're all experts.
I would say prog is like the jazz of rock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like we talk about, like Miles Davis kind of blew it, but Alex did a good thing with his jazz tag entry, talking about Love Supreme. Everybody's like, oh, you look at the top, jazz albums of all time. Love Supreme is like one or two almost every single time. But like Alex said, like if let's say like, I don't know, like let's say like Rob's son, like Rob has a son. Let's say like he's like, I don't know anything about jazz. He's young, just getting into music. I'm not gonna give him Love Supreme. Like it's not going to happen. I'm not going to give, like my sisters who are in their 20s don't necessarily have full jazz knowledge. Like Love Supreme is not the album I'm going to give them. Just like prog, you're probably not going to give like I mean, I don't know anything about prog, but I'm assuming like even something like Gumma or something like that, like kind of like that psych rock or anything like that. Like I'm not giving that to somebody who's starting out. I'm sure you would probably give like the Yes album or something very accessible with a little bit of pop thrown into it. Something like that that's softer, but like if you don't know anything about it, It's like there's so much of this stuff out there. So,
well, yeah, and you know what's so funny, Rob? Actually, I didn't even consider this, but this is how it works, right? Like, Rob, you're a huge Queen fan. Like those first four, I mean,
yes,
I cannot think of a single thing, and this is amongst all the crazy shit that King Crimson and Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer did. I cannot think of a single tune more proggy, quote unquote, than the Prophet song from Queen. And that's an example of Night at the Opera, but like Queen 2 especially, and Queen 1 and Sheer Heart Attack, I mean, those are prog albums.
Yeah.
And you know, Sam, you make a great point of, and I see some comments rolling in. I love these comments. Was like, oh, Dan mentioned the Prophet song too. Is that the other thing to consider is that same thing with other types of music is what you hear on the radio is not necessarily indicative of that band and their style. Right. One of the very common misconceptions, and I think especially people outside of the States, is a band like Kansas. So Kansas, I'm not going to say they blew up, but the songs "Dust in the Wind" and "Carry On Wayward Son" blew. I mean, those were AOR like staples, and they're great songs, but not indicative of who they are as a band at all. I mean, Kansas is as proggy as any other sort of European band that was coming out a couple years earlier. I saw this in the comments. I'm going to show it in my tag. I brought it up. I asked the question of, you know, prog goes pop. That's one of the tag questions of like, show a progressive rock album that has pop leanings or has songs that were on the radio or is more accessible, whatever you want to call it. And I went with Breakfast in America from Supertramp. You know, Supertramp, I think you could argue, is sort of one of the poster children of the sort of accessible, quote unquote, poppy progressive music. I went with this one because this was the mega. I mean, this thing has sold a bazillion copies, but you have, you know, the Logical song, huge song. Goodbye Stranger was huge. Breakfast in America was huge. I forgot Breakfast in America, the song. If Sam, this might have been more your generation. Do you remember that song being sampled late in like? It was like Breakfast in America, the song that "Take a Look at My Girlfriend."
It was like a pop punk song or something. Wasn't
yeah,
it?
Like it was sampled in like the early mid-2000s.
Yeah.
You know, Take the Long Way Home. Again, I mean, like the amount of bangers that are on here, but there's still so much complexity. This has always been a record that's always sounded really great. And if you dive earlier into Supertramp's catalog, Sam, I know, for example, you have Crime of the Century. I think that was something that Steve might have sent you.
Yep.
You know, you have stuff on there like Dreamer, but then you have stuff like there, like the title track that closes the record. So, you know, my thing is always casting a wider net and not to think of prog as a genre per se, but more of a style of progressive music. And you know, it's funny, Rob, we were talking, I think before we went live, is a lot of the prog purists, you know, the researchers, whatever, will point as what was the beginning of prog? Well, formally speaking, people will formally say that 1969 in the Court of the Crimson King was the first formal official prog record. But there's a lot of stuff that came before that. And a lot of people point, kid you not, to Sgt. Pepper. You know, the Beatles created everything. They were the first to do everything. And that includes prog. Not necessarily because people listen to Sgt. Pepper and hear odd time signatures and 45-minute songs and people were wearing capes, but because it was the record that got people thinking about music in a different way in the mid to late 60s outside of just, let's write a 2-minute pop song.
Right.
It had a lot of different technology influences. There was a lot of different compositional influences. The arrangements were different. The introduction of orchestras, even before Sgt. Pepper, arguably the first progressive rock band was the Moody Blues. I mean, they were putting out stuff in 65. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of the prog rant, but I think hopefully that casts a little bit of a wider net that it's not, is this prog, but is this music that is progressive and falls outside of what is the normal sort of 3-minute pop song or 3-minute rock song that we're so used to hearing about?
Show us a prog record, Alex.
Oh, I'll show you a prog record. Okay.
If you got one.
Yeah, I still have mine.
You may have a few.
Well, you know, for the Canadians here, and this came up last week, right? So I'll show moving pictures. One of my questions was show a record from an artist that you missed. We're rolling up here on I think the 3 or 4 year anniversary of Neil Peart's death.
Yep.
That was just a couple days ago, but a few years ago. So I've been seeing a lot of people talking about it more and more. This to me is a perfect record, but I also think it's a perfect introduction to. You have obviously the complexity, the prog, all the things that is Rush, but this was all over and still is all over classic rock radio all the time. Tom Sawyer, Limelight, even Red Barchetta's everywhere. But then you have YYZ. Why is it called YYZ, Sam? What's YYZ mean?
YYZ in
It's
Canada.
actually YYZ.
YYZ. You are correct. YYZ is what, Sam? It's the Toronto airport code.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
YYZ local airport.
Yeah, but exactly. But I think this is sort of their masterpiece. They have stuff before this that's a lot proggier, a lot longer, a lot more, whatever out there. But I think again, in terms of all of the things, regarding prog meets accessibility, radio friendly stuff. This is what I deal with. Thanks for
That's your creative director, is it not?
Yeah, well, I think the only reason Carly's here is because she probably subscribed last week when we were whoring you out for 1,000 subs, Rob. So we'll show moving pictures for the Canadians in the house, and just a defining prog record from 1980. So,
all right, I'm going to catch up on a few comments here. We're right about here. Music Sanctuary says, I've never considered Supertramp as prog, but apparently they are from people's points of view. I consider them to be classic rock. Alex, what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I think it's a both and situation. I think for me, prog rarely lends itself to a single genre. But it's again
kind of in the same way that Americana kind of bleeds into other. So
yeah, absolutely.
Got some synergies tonight.
Yeah, but if you're unsure, listen to Fool's Overture from Supertramp. Fool's Overture it's a 12, 13-minute song. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, but yeah, absolutely great.
French Vinyl Addict says, well said, Sam. What characterized the prog artists was that these guys were primarily influenced by classical or jazz. Yep.
And literature. You read Rush lyrics. Good grief. They got in trouble.
Prog demanded virtuoso standard of musicianship, as the high-ranking prog artists had to be the master of their instrument. Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect, that comment. Here's the thing with that comment is yes, and because I think it's one of those things of people have looked at prog musicians being virtuosos and very great at their instruments from a pretentious lens, but they're coming from that standpoint that we just looked at from jazz and classical music. The whole idea is if Beethoven was alive today, he would be either a metal artist or a progressive rock artist. And so because there's so much focused on that virtuosity musicianship.
Or a white rapper. That'd be hilarious.
Well, he could be all those things.
He could have done Ice Ice Baby. You never know. Roy says, in an interview with Ian Anderson, said he was the most influenced by Pink Floyd. He met Syd Barrett and gave him the inspiration in his early in his career. Kansas, which we talked about, doing the song Point of No Return, sounds like Sticks on Crystal Ball.
Yeah, I can see that.
Dan would love your MoFi breakfast.
I bet you would. You got to pay extra for it, though, Dan. And then I'll talk about this record.
You don't want it after his ass tea, though.
There's a reason they call him Supertramp.
That's right.
Oh, boy. Moving along. JWG Moore says Canadian prog bands other than Rush include Zon, Saga, and FM. I don't know FM. I know Saga. I never heard of Zon until last week when Chris Profi and I happened to be exchanging messages, and he enlightened me about Zon. I'd never heard of them. So,
yeah, the big FM one is Black Noise. I think it's Black Noise. That's the record to get. It's a great record.
Lots of heavy Hammond organ groups in the 60s stumbled into prog.
Show you a heavy organ.
Let's see if John's going to be a smartass or says something intelligent. Let's see. Cupid's Chokehold is a song by American rap rock band Gym Class Heroes. The song relies heavily on the music and chorus of Supertramp's hits. There you go.
That was it. Yeah,
they're the ones that sang that song "My Stereo Heart" with Adam Levine, which was a huge hit when I was in 8th grade.
See, John, when you're not being a smartass, you're a pretty smart guy. Or he Googled it. Who knows?
It's getting all fed into his earbuds.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Interesting point, Alex. Last summer, I read the incredible book by French author. I'm not going to pronounce that.
Leroy.
Sure. which doesn't rightly begins in '69 with the release of King Crimson's first album, but provides.
He keeps going.
Provides an overview of who were already Prog before Prog, Prog-esque or Prog-ish. Scott from the Prog Corner says, which mid-late 60s bands paved the way. There you go.
Sure. And I would, that is something that is totally
like
Procol Harum. And they were who I showed in my, tag if you watched it, Sam. But
I commented, didn't I?
You sure did. But it's so funny. That's a great point, and that carries itself to every other genre of music, right? Like you have sort of like this unofficial start time, and then you have the stuff before that influenced that, and Procol Harum and the Moody Blues and the Beatles, and a lot of those the Pretty Things. A lot of those bands totally influenced that.
Oh my God! Roy saw someone in concert. Can you believe it? He saw the Moody Blues in '69. Found them boring.
I love the Moody Blues, but I could also totally buy that. Like I could see them not exactly being the most like interactive.
They're moody
and bluesy.
And if you don't like blue, if you prefer red, then you're screwed.
And I always think about
Taylor Swift.
When I think of, have you both seen Love and Mercy?
Yeah.
Yes.
When they're at the show, yeah.
When they're at the show, that's all I think. When I think of the Moody Blue Eyes, I think of Brian Wilson losing his mind at the Moody Blues show, singing "Nights in White Satin." But yeah.
Yep. Dan is saying that I'm bored waiting for Jay's spring training. Well, yes, because I very much miss baseball. No, because our fucking failure of a general manager did absolutely sweet dick all in the offseason. He promised big moves and did nothing. Re-signed Kiermaier, great. Unfortunately, can't hit, but I love him. We signed Kiner Falefa from New York. Great utility infielder. Don't need him. We already have Biggio and Schneider. So he's done sweet F all to improve our team. So I'm excited because spring training is less than 60 days away. But I'm not excited because our team sucks just as bad as it did last year. On the bright side, you can't see, but right over there, I have a seat from the Rogers Center sitting in my office now, and I can sit in it anytime I want. Rant over.
What's the best Jay's Prog album?
Ribbit. Let's see here. What's Roy say? I think Soft Machine and early Pink Floyd are the creators of Prog.
I can see that. And I love Soft Machine. All eras, yeah.
What's the polyphonic spree Prog? I don't even know what that means.
That might be a Dan comment.
How many Blue Rodeo albums do we have? All of them. And all of the ones that are available on vinyl, including the promo releases that were never for sale. We need more Glockenspiel. Everybody. Again, I have them all. I showed a really rare one in my Americana vinyl tag. Are you ready? Which good luck finding one of those.
There you go, Alex.
Well, it's funny. I think my sister likes new wave music, but there's a lot of FBA better do this tag. If he's going to sit here and do the whole damn tag in our comments, he better post a video about it. But there is a lot out there. Scott over at the Prog Corner is great with all this stuff. He just did a video recently about the Borderline semi-prog records, but there's a lot out there about post-punk and new wave and prog's influence on that type of stuff. So, bands like XTC or Talk Talk or Split Ends, Tears for Fears is a huge one. The Stranglers, which were a little bit before then and like a heavily European band, but just again, their use of sound and how they went about writing. So, yeah.
I know your sister's waiting for a new wave tag, but you know what the people are really waiting for? They're really waiting for the Beer and Vinyl Northern Revolution's Taylor Swift collaboration.
It's a time to get the people what they want.
It's coming, folks, very, very soon.
Yeah, and then we're gonna make a video. And then we're gonna make a video about it.
Yeah, there you go. Max Webster did.
I love that joke.
Froggy or
Max? Do you know Max Webster up there, Rob?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Kim Mitchell.
Well, yeah. So, I have nothing of Max Webster. Really difficult to find down here.
Really,
but like totally like
Max Webster is in all the $2 record bins at every record show. You want some Max Webster? You just tell me. I'll get you some.
Find them all and then toss them over the falls over in Niagara.
You know what we'll do? We'll meet at the falls. You go over to Goat Island on the U.S. side, and I'll frisbee them across to you.
Now we're talking. Absolutely, yeah, because I can never find any of their stuff down here. And what is it? Is it something glass? Is that the one, the kind of the big one?
I don't know
glass
all
or
of them.
something?
Okay, I'm not a fan, but
yeah.
So I mean, so Kim Mitchell left Max Webster and went solo, and he became a very famous radio personality in Canada. He was on, I think, Q107 for a very long time. Might still be. I don't know. I've seen Kim Mitchell in concert, but I didn't go to a Kim Mitchell concert. I was at a Bryan Adams concert when he was touring for the anniversary of Reckless. He was in Hamilton, Ontario, and he comes out for the encore, and he goes, "Hey, everybody, I got a couple friends here that want to come out and play with me. I hope you don't mind." And everyone's like, "Oh, right, whatever." And out on stage walks Randy Bachman and Kim Mitchell.
Wow.
Play with Bryan Adams. It was great. And the first song they did was a cover of The Band.
What was the song?
I think it was The Wait.
Yeah.
And then they did Kim Mitchell didn't do a song, but they did Taking Care of Business, obviously the BTO song.
But the Kim Mitchell, the huge song, at least, I mean, you might have had more hits.
Patio Lanterns was his big one.
What's that?
Patio Lanterns was his huge hit.
Oh, I think whatever the one down here was like, and nobody cried, you know.
Oh, yeah. Patio Lanterns.
Nobody cried or nobody tried or
something like that.
It's the one they sing in Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah. His huge hit up here was Patio Lanterns, and I'm not going to sing it. It's a stupid song, but let's see
with a name like that.
It's no halfway up the stairs.
Nothing is.
The Muppets Prog.
Dan says the Mariners did fuck all. True. Isn't that where Teoscar Hernandez went and he just left to go sign with the Dodgers who stole everybody? Okay, you need to answer this question. Is ELO Prog?
1,000%, especially their first two. I mean, those first two records they did were absolutely Prog.
You mean this album? The album that I pulled?
Yeah, same looking at exact. Yeah, 1,000%. But then even all that other stuff, I think they are the perfect example of progressive pop. They are prog pop all the way.
Look what the people want. Like, you know, I think in the next month we got to do it.
In due time.
Oh, okay. So while this comment is up,
gosh,
he's got to show his bootleg, and then his new record,
and then his record that's unofficial. Yeah.
You know what, Alex? You know it.
Yeah.
A bootleg of beautiful. Oh, hold on. I got a full screen me on this one here.
Oh, look at him.
Come on, Peanut.
There you go.
I mean, that's old school there.
She's also probably like 16 right there.
I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about the record guy.
Hold on. You know how you know that's a bootleg? Look how big that barcode is on the back.
I know, right? It's totally scanned off of the CD.
What is the significance of this? Are they like demos?
No, this was an EP that she did. It was a Walmart exclusive EP between her first album and Fearless. And the CD alone is pretty hard to find and expensive. Never been pressed on vinyl. And never will be because she's not with Big Machine Records anymore. So somebody has pirated this or bootlegged it or whatever. And you know what? They did a really good job. The inner sleeve is cool. The record's on colored vinyl. Wow. It sounds really good. And here's the cool thing. Inside the jacket, it's printed with a picture too.
Wow.
They did a really good job.
That's like the bootleg.
Are those like unreleased songs though? Like have you ever
No, so what songs? It is, so it was Beautiful Eyes was an unreleased song, and then an acoustic version of Should Have Said No, and another acoustic version of Teardrops on My Guitar, the radio edit of Picture to Burn, and then another unreleased song called I'm Only Me When I'm With You, another unreleased song called I Heart ? And then an ACM performance and a Clear Channel stripped performance of a couple other songs. So
we need talk about a record store day wish list is the CMT Crossroads, Taylor Swift, Def Leppard. Could you imagine?
Yes, that would be phenomenal.
Because if Taylor Swift fans like anything, it's Def Leppard.
Well, there's some crossover there.
Yes.
Dan, I'm not influencing Alex to like Taylor Swift. We are both Swifties on our own accord.
True.
And not because of blackmail or whatever. We
both Rob and I are already behind her, and we also support her and like her music.
Absolutely.
Say.
Absolutely. Let's see. Everything comes back to Taylor, right? Arguably, when she re-releases her TS recordings, she could put those on vault tracks. Yes, she could. And she might, but I don't think that she would put the should have said no ACM awards performance. I don't think that'll be on there. The Beautiful Eyes Clear Channel strip performance probably won't be on there. So
you mentioned you just said the word vault, and I don't know. This is completely off topic, but this is for Rob because I'm a good friend, and you should know about this. Do you know about the Jack White vault collection from Third Man Records?
I've heard about it. Yeah,
it's like the quarterly thing where like it's usually a White Stripes or Jack White related box set. It's like limited to the vault subscribers. Well, they occasionally go out of the box and do random artists, like they've done a Johnny Cash, they've done a Carole King. This vault, the new vault, which was just announced, I think it comes out in February. You have until January 31st to subscribe. It's $75. It is the original Elvis Sun Records singles.
No.
And it's on this beautiful like gold. They call it like Memphis dust colored vinyl, but it's like gold like spiral vinyl. And it's 6 singles and then an EP, and it comes with a patch that's supposed to look like his truck driving patch, like when he and then there's like two prints, one picture of Elvis, one picture of Sun Records, and then a 45 adapter, which is the Sun Records Rooster, but it's a metal adapter. But you should look it up.
I'm intrigued.
You're a big Elvis guy.
I am.
I know my buddy Tommy from Tommy's Musical Adventures. He does the vault subscriptions. He worked at Graceland for about a year when he lived in Memphis.
Really? That'd be amazing. That's on my bucket list to go there.
You need check out this vault because I'm not even I like Elvis, but this is like obviously this is like 50s Elvis, and these singles look.
That's the best Elvis,
and it's Third Man, so you know it's going to sound great.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the heads up on that.
Yeah, you need to check it out. You have until the 31st to, otherwise after that it's done.
Okay.
Rob, jump on JWG more is Carly does think that I Heart ? Goes hard. So that's good. At the bottom there. Yeah. So Starcastle, they're outside of Chicago. I think they're solid. They were just a big. Here's the funny. Both those bands, I like both of them. Unfortunately for them, just based on their timing, they've sort of become like the little brothers of other bands. Like they've become like the poor man's other band. So Triumvirate, they're out of Germany, but they've sort of the poor man's ELP. People literally describe them as the poor man's Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And Starcastle was like a Yes sort of copy group, but a little bit later. But I really do like both of those bands. I want to see Rob and Sam's choices now.
All right.
You just saw one of them.
Can I go? I'm going to
go.
I can go because, I'm the boss. I'm steering this shit.
You're streaming.
Well, this relates to Sam because I want to talk about ELO.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
So, as I mentioned, I think the other week I'm starting to explore ELO a little bit because when I did that record meetup with Brian from Embryonic Robot and Chris from Stylus Meets Vinyl, Chris gifted me 2 ELO records. There was New World Record and El Dorado. And I've listened to them both, and I enjoy them both a lot. Very good. I don't know where that fits in their catalog. I don't know the time frame. I assume it's 70s, late 70s. I don't know. I'm just and I purposely went in blind because I just wanted to hear it. Well, last Saturday, I met up with Jeff from Speaker's Corner because he lives very close to me, about 20 minutes away. And we went to a local record store. But before that, we had lunch. And before lunch, he gave me a Christmas present. And that Christmas present was a brand new unopened copy of Out of the Blue. And I listened to it, and I freaking love it. I love it better than the other 2.
Yeah.
This is my favorite of the 3. And again, I don't know where this fits in the chronology of ELO. Yep. I don't know anything about it, but God damn it. I love it.
And totally tracks. Eldorado was early.
album.
That was 73 or 74. New World Record, I think, was 76, and that was like 77. But that is the peak of their commercialism. Like I think Discovery came after that, and that's when they went a little bit disco. Still a good record, but there is some disco flourishes there. But that totally doesn't surprise me. I mean, that to me, that's a pop masterpiece. That's such a good record.
So that's a pop. This is a pop record, not a prog record.
I mean, I would totally call it prog pop. I mean, there's so many. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, and again, like when we say prog, we're not talking about like Yes or King Crimson, but you know, it's even though you love that record a lot more than some of those other ones, there's still very clearly the influence of those.
Yeah. I'd like the other two, but just if I had to pick, gut reaction out of the blue
which
first.
Then takes you back to the Beatles connection, because obviously like the strings and everything, or like I Am the Walrus kind of stuff. And so then you look at something like I Am the Walrus for Strawberry Fields, which Strawberry Fields is obviously in different movements, even though it's only a 3-minute song. It has specific movements, which again goes to the classical aspects of prog. And again, Jeff Lynne was the master at bringing in those strings, and everybody's like, "Oh, those are the Beatle influences." Well, the Beatles were influenced by the classics, because you had George Martin, the classical guy, doing that. And then later, you know, Paul was getting involved into it. But yeah, that's definitely got those prog elements. Because again, you know, just to jump to, you know, this was one of the records I showed was the first ELO album. This is the Electric Light Orchestra, is what it's called. When Roy Wood was still doing about 50-50 of, you know, of the work. And actually you listen to this and you're listening to the songs, you're like, ooh, where's Jeff Lynne in this? Like you're listening to, it's like Roy Wood and, you know, like the Wizard, you know, background, because Roy Wood was coming from Wizard, which, you know, a name like Wizard, you know, that's pretty proggy.
Have you ever seen that guy?
Oh yeah, he's something.
Yeah.
And even Bev Bevan is kind of out there too, but then you have Jeff coming from, you know, the Popular, The Move, and Idle Race. And then they come together to put this album out. I mean, the album starts with 10:53:8 Overture, which, you know, when an album has an overture, you're like, oh, is this Wagner? No, it's Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood.
Yeah.
And I mean, not really any hits. I mean, that was, I guess, the song that kind of stayed with Jeff Lynne throughout the career that he still plays live. But like Nelly takes her bow, like stuff like that. And some of these, I mean, First Movement, Jumping Biz, Manhattan Rumble. I mean, this stuff is just, it's out there. I mean, you listen to this, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, look at those guys. They're pirates, you know, puffy shirt. And
puffy shirt.
I mean, like you hear this and then you're like, these are the same guys that would do Telephone Line, which is just like Top Bliss.
Yep.
It's incredible how, again, like I said, the first two, and even really like New World Record, those 3 albums with the segue out of Roy Wood, because Roy Wood, even the second album, he's very limited on like a couple of tracks. And then he was out, and then Jeff Lynne was the dynamo behind it all. So yeah, I mean, the initial influence was there their whole career. Even there's the last couple of Jeff Lynne ELO records that came out in like 2015 or so. It was always there.
Yeah. And I think there's such a good example of like, I think in our minds, we think if it's pop, then it can't be progressive or it can't be prog, right? Like, I think that's just the way our minds or ears go, opposed to like what other band during the mid 70s was marrying this like orchestral, insanely amazing songwriting with like some of the best hooks we've ever heard, but like brought in an orchestra to, you know what I mean? Like nobody else is doing that. We don't really know what to call it, which is why we call it a whole bunch of different stuff. But yeah, I mean, and I think that's my thing too, of like, yeah, ELO, I think I mentioned Supertramp, but I put ELO in that same sort of category of like, they had some mega pop hits, but you know, you listen to these albums all the way through and the amount of complexity and orchestration that's going on there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Check on comments. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Well, you can't go to the bathroom. You're the prog guy. What are Sam and I going to talk about?
Be right back.
Oh gosh.
What are we going to talk about, Sam? What do we know about prog?
Let's hope the comments keep us in check.
Dan says Star Castle were fun because you know what they were attempting to pull off. I'm going to say yeah because I don't know what that means.
No, I don't know what that means.
We need Alex for this. Out of the Blue is one of the top selling albums. Yes.
And it's a double record, which is even crazier.
Yep. Idle Race are great too. Very influential.
I think there's a box set that you can buy of all the Idle Race records that's fairly cheap, which I need to get into. I've never really listened to them.
Apparently, they were very popular in Germany after family disbanded. Since I grew up very close to Germany, I followed his career. Earth and Fire and Renaissance were great symphonic and folky prog bands.
Well, it's kind of like Aqualung. I mean, Aqualung is covered in folk, which,
I
obviously
pulled that record.
Yeah, I almost did, but I don't know enough about it. Steve gave me a copy.
The only reason I pulled it, I've never listened to it. I mean, I know there's a song or two off here, but
Locomotive Breath, probably.
I've never actually listened to this. The only reason I kept it is when my dad died, I went through his records and I kept this because I'd heard how great it was, and it never clicked with me, but I won't get rid of it because it was his.
Yeah, great record. I was trying to think of some other stuff. Someone mentioned, I don't know who it was. Someone mentioned Renaissance.
Yeah, it's up there somewhere.
I pulled this for my tag video as my favorite prog vocalist. So Renaissance is one of the only prog bands, or one of the only classic sort of bands that's led by a female vocalist, Annie Haslam, who's just amazing. The best comparison I would give is, and I would say too, like, this is the element of prog that the subgenre would come, and we would call it symphonic prog because it's heavy use of orchestras. We're talking like 22-minute songs, but they're not. I mean, they're like symphonies, right? Like when you go, it's like that's more how it's written. But imagine if like Karen Carpenter was like the front woman of like a progressive rock symphonic rock band. Like this would be it. Outstanding.
JWG Moore points out that 2112 has an overture.
Sure does.
Yep. Oops, hold on there. Bebop Deluxe, hard rock, glam prog.
One of my favorites. Bill Nelson's Out of Control.
Phil Spector, prog. I'd say Phil Spector, Murderer.
Hardly know her.
Sam, does your Out of the Blue have the spaceship included?
No, it has a jewel case.
Yeah.
Is Kate Bush prog?
1000%. Kate Bush is, yeah. I mean, you look at is it the Dreaming or Hounds of Love? I think it's Hounds of Love. That the whole, I mean, this is the thing, right? It's like when we think Kate Bush, like you think of maybe a couple of those radio hits. The Hounds of Love, the whole second side is like a 5 or 6 song suite called The Ninth Wave, where it's this whole story about like this woman who like drowns in the ocean and then gets confronted by a witch, and then like shit hits the fan. It is outstanding. Like, I mean, that's the thing, is like we might not know about those things because we just hear like the radio hits and we're like, okay, that's obviously indicative of their sound, but yeah,
might as well have a soda as the other Kim Mitchell hit that was a monster up here.
Oh yeah,
it's me, I'm Kathy.
Wait, so the two big hits up there were Might As Well Have a Soda, and what was the other one? Like Patio Pumpkins?
Patio Lanterns. Stupid
wow.
song. Keith Ralph from the Yardbirds was the lead singer on the first Renaissance album.
Yeah.
I want to talk about prog album quick. This was a Glenn Calloway album that he talks about all the time. So I saw it at the flea market for like $5 and I bought it.
Yeah. Have you listened to it?
The Edge by Yes. It's okay.
Yeah.
Is that how's that fall in the spectrum of proggy stuff? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, if you asked 100 prog, whatever scholars what the best progressive rock album of all time is, maybe 80 out of those 100 would say it's that record.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to give it another listen. I'm like, I appreciated it. Like, I'm like, oh, that's clever. That sounds neat. But is it one I'm going to go back to? Like, am I going to look at my records and go, man, I want to listen to that Yes record? No.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that definitely falls more in line of the complex, like hard listening, like got to sit down with it and be in the mood for it. Like, not necessarily, that's not an ELO record, like,
right,
sort of thing. But yeah, that's the classic. But yeah.
Dan wants to know if did Rod Stewart do any Prog?
It's his birthday today, though. It's Rod Stewart's birthday.
Is it?
79. And Jim Croce. We were talking about Americana. Not that Jim Croce is really Americana. I don't consider there's singer-songwriter and there's Americana. I don't. Yeah. There's a fine line. But
there's two other very famous music birthdays this month. Mine was yesterday, and Elvis's was the day before.
And Bowie, yeah.
That's Bowie or me and Elvis.
Right.
I'm gonna show this record. We were talking. We were talking like sort of proto Prog. Sam brought up Procol Harum. I mean, they're a great example because they sort of come from that. Gary Brooker comes from that blue-eyed soul sort of voice, right? Like not necessarily a voice that you would consider with Prog stuff, but to me, not only this record, which came out in '68, Shine On Brightly, but they, basically the whole of side 2 is taken up by a track called In Hell 'Twas an I, which is, up there in 20 minutes or so of, a ton of different movements, all that, kind of stuff, but it still sounds like Procol Harum. But, funny enough, is just a year later, they would release A Salty Dog, which sounds nothing like this, but is a concept album and has different movements and different recurring themes and all those different things too. So I always point to this as like the first quote unquote like official Prog record, but a lot of that is due to In Hell 'Twas an I that took up the whole side B basically of this record, which is fabulous. So,
and I would be remiss and not just to say with Procol Harum, because one of the people in the VC who has been on indefinite hiatus, is a big Procol Harum fan, is George Allen, LPs and CDs. And I just, with this moment, just want to say, just continue to think about George Allen as he is dealing with some things. So just wanted to throw that out there because he's a big Procol Harum guy.
Love that.
Yeah.
And another one of those bands that they don't sound like Procol Harum, but I think they come up in a lot of that proto kind of Prog stuff is Traffic. The early, Stevie Winwood. And,
Low Spark of High Heel Boys. Absolutely.
Right. What is that? I mean, that's like a 14-minute song, right? Like that.
I saw Dave Mason do the Traffic tour a few years ago, got to meet him. So he was doing like the Winwood stuff and I mean, obviously a few of his hits, but he was doing like Low Spark of High Heel Boys, Medicated Goo, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's, sometimes I feel like with a lot of that stuff, it's like, if we don't know what else to call it, we'll just be like, there's progressive elements. It's like, it's psyche, it's bluesy, it's jazzy, it's rock. It's like a little bit of everything. But I think philosophically, it's progressive music, right?
It's like my channel.
I would say.
Do either of you get anything else to show?
Just real quick. I mean, just because, if I was to pick a favorite Prog album, and it's funny that I love this album. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason as to why I love this album. Animals.
Yeah.
But I know, and it's funny because Glenn, Mr. Prog himself, does not like this album. Like, this is like bottom tier Pink Floyd to him.
Fascinating. That's my favorite one.
And I'm not a big Roger Waters guy, but this is a Roger Waters record. I love this album. I love the bookends with Pigs on the Wing, but I love I love Dogs, how it's kind of like the repeat where it sounds like a dog barking throughout the whole thing. It's really, really cool. I mean, I have the 2018 remix that came out last year.
Oh yeah,
that
with the different cover.
Yeah, with like the modern cover of like the industrial. It's a meatpacking plant, isn't it?
It's the Battersea power plant.
Power plant, yeah. So, which I hate. I didn't when I was in London. I didn't even think to go see it.
Oh yeah, it's like one of if you're into like closed off things of yesteryear. It's like that's cool. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, I know we're winding now, but I wanted to show Animals because I do for whatever reason like this record a lot.
That's so funny that is. I know you talked about on your channel like the most listened to artists of last year, or whatever, and I was surprised to hear that Pink Floyd was so high
because of Jeff Witcher. Yeah.
Oh wow, there you go.
Bought all their stuff, like all their studio stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Porcupine Tree is one of the biggest, Prog bands of the late '90s and mid 2000s. I mean, yeah, they are 1000% all Prog all the time.
Karen Carpenter was a force, could have elevated any genre of music, according to Matt.
True. Great drummer too.
Yep. Spooky Tooth could get a little proggy.
Good, yeah. There's a lot of that like late '60s hard rock stuff that definitely dabbled.
Tubular
Totally.
Bells.
Totally. I mean, what Tubular Bells is one track, right? I mean, it's 40 minutes of just continuous music, all Mike Oldfield. Just I mean, and also, so Tubular Bells, that's the theme to The Exorcist. So, which came later. But if you listen to it, and for any music fans out there, that's a song in 15/8. So like the whole, like if you listen to The Exorcist, like it's a set of 7 and a set of 8 that go together. I mean, yeah, and he plays all this stuff on there. So yeah.
Roy says apparently the Battersea Power Station is now a museum. And Roy's probably been there.
Probably. He probably worked there for like the day that they like filmed the inflatable pig.
Well, I was gonna say, have you read the story about that whole day, Sam?
Yeah, because like the pig flew away and like they had to shoot it down. And that's like it's like early Photoshop, right? Like they had to like superimpose the pig in there.
It's like that's like one of those stories where you're like, this can't be a real
again,
story.
Sam.
So like obviously like the famous cover with the inflatable pig, which they used on tour in the stadiums. They had like 3 or 4 different ones because it was massive. It was like just a big old balloon, and it kept going rogue, and so like it didn't line up, and so they literally had to like shoot it down with like a pellet gun or whatever. They were like 22, and finally they just were like, forget that. So they just took the pig and kind of glued it right there on the picture.
The whole day is just so ridiculous.
Can you imagine the Brits looking up there and being like, bloody hell, there's a pork.
It's like similar. There's this, I know we're nearing the end, but there's this wild story. It's like the only thing I can think of course, it's Cleveland and the stake on the lake. The river catching on fire wasn't good enough for Cleveland. There's a story about how they wanted to set the Guinness Book of World Records for most balloons released at the same time. Well, if you know anything about balloons, they're not exactly good for the environment. So they released like 40 billion of these balloons into the air, and it was like a rainy day. And of course, the rain just brought all of them down and like took out all the balloons, and just like all this latex ended up in the river and in Lake Erie. And then like people disappeared in Lake Erie, and they had to call off the search and rescue for them because it was just covered in balloons. Like it's like the only thing. It's like only a Cleveland thing. Like what the?
Yeah. All right, we're at the 2-hour mark, so let's go around the horn and talk about what you got going on, what's on your mind. Promote your channel a little bit. Sam, what do you? Obviously, your Americana tag.
Yeah, big Americana tag. I started late on Sunday evening, and it's picking up some traction. I think again, I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, but I have a couple of people that are kind of confirmed to do a tag. I've got a playlist on my channel called Americana Tag 2024. If it gets popular enough, it might be an annual thing. We'll see if I can come up with questions next year. But so I've got the Americana tag. Thank everybody for doing it. Rob did a version. Our normal compadre Glenn did a version, but he wasn't here tonight. I did a video showcasing this new instrument that I got, so please go check that out. My new Gibson guitar. That was a really fun video to make. A little bit different for me. It was non-vinyl related. And just posted a video before the stream of some VCLT I got from our buddy Anthony over at Gambler 812. Sent me 27 pounds worth of records. It blew my mind. And it wasn't, for the most part, it was not filler. I mean, it was good stuff. Because he's a thrift guy. He knows where to look. Up there in Boston, they have thrift stores that have more than Leonard Bernstein. So I got a bunch of stuff from Anthony, so I just posted that. I'm probably going to have a few videos coming out with me actually playing the guitar. I'll re-mention the podcast that Rob and I did, the Vinyl Community Podcast. Just look at my community page, look at Rob's channel. He has the video version. I've shared those on my page as well. And check that out. And then again, about a week and a half ago, I did a video with Brian Massey from Massey's Main Entertainment on Jason Isbell's album Southeastern, another Americana artist. So check that out. It's also on my community page and on Massey's Main Entertainment. So all sorts of stuff. At some point, Glenn and I are going to do a Bob Dylan video. We haven't talked about it at all, but it's coming. So a bunch of stuff.
It was new guitar day for me this week too, Sam.
Oh, that's right.
Thing of beauty.
So it's a 72 deluxe Telecaster, except it's not actually. It is a Fender neck, but I made it. Well, sort of. The body was a gift from my employees at my previous job, but it was unfinished, so I painted it.
Yeah,
and then I wired it all up and everything. And it's rather than using a normal wide range humbucker, they're like a Filtertron pickup. So it's kind of like a kind of a Gretsch tone in a Telecaster. So pretty excited about that.
So have you cranked it up at all?
A little bit, but it needs a setup. Like the neck needs, the intonation needs to be set on it and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't have the tools to do a proper setup, so I just got to take it over to my guy sometime in the next few days. But it feels nice. It plays nice, and it'll sound better when it's fully set up. But
cool.
That's kind of a side note. No one else cares about that except for Sam.
It's awesome.
Videos for me, I did Sam's Americana tag, but I did it a little bit differently. Tune in to find out why. I am going to do MGK Boston's 3 wedding songs push to 1 million subs video. I'll probably film that tomorrow. I'm also going to do Frank over at Channel 33 RPM has a 10 album challenge where his wife pulled 10 records. We're going to do that, although Mrs. Northern Revolutions refused to appear on camera because she's camera shy, but she will pull the 10 records. In fact, she already has pulled them. They're sitting over on my stereo. So I just have to film me discussing the albums that she's pulled. And I think I'm going to shoot a new room tour next week because the last one I did was 2 years ago. So I will be coming up maybe in a week or so.
It's funny. Our buddy Glenn just celebrated.
I saw that today. His 800th video.
800th video, and it's funny because he messed when we have our email list for those that don't know, like where we talk about what topics we're going to do for the stream. Glenn said that he did his 4th room tour. He's like, that's all I could find. I'm like, I know that's not true. So I went through and did some searching. I believe he's done 8 room tours. He thought it was 4. So
has it changed?
No.
Just go check out Glenn's video.
Okay, yes. But here's the thing, and kind of the reason I was thinking,
yeah, go ahead.
It's been 2 years since I did mine, and yes, a few things have changed. But also, when you look at your analytics, for me, it's something like 95% of the videos that people are watching on my channel in the last several months are current videos. They're not going back because I've got 170 videos on my channel. They're not going to scroll to the very bottom of those 170 videos to find my room tour. So I'm like, I'll make a new one and hopefully after 2 years, I've learned to make a little bit better quality video. So, I don't mind doing it every couple of years. Why not? And they're fun to make. And people love watching room tours.
Exactly. That's kind of what Glenn has said too, that you're not going back and looking for, 3-year-old Glenn Kellaway videos. I mean, as much as his ego would say that you do, like, I've got to watch everything he's ever done, and then you collect his bootlegs.
Never happens.
No, you don't do it because some people have lives.
Yeah. Alex, what do you got going on besides your Prog tag, which everyone should do if they can?
Yeah, right. Yeah, jump on there. Go check it out.
Maybe I should do your Prog tag, but I'll be a smartass and I'm going to answer like every record with like Taylor Swift or Spice Girls or Kid Rock or something that is absolutely not Prog.
It's so I'm telling you, Rob, the same thing I tell other people is I guarantee you could go through a collection, you would find like records that would fit the questions. But
I just think it would be hilarious for me to answer those questions completely, straight dead serious, but know that I'm absolutely bullshitting on every one of them and none of them are Prog. I think that'd be hilarious.
It would be hilarious. As long as you're supporting the channel, Rob, that's all that counts. So
I always do, man.
So we got that going on. I still I'm struggling with this, but my goal by the end of January is to do a top 50 at 50. So my top 50 records that were released in 1974, celebrating 50 years today, or this year. So that'll be a bit of probably a series. I'll do that in a couple different parts, but that's a lot of it. And check out the Prog tag and other stuff. And I'm coming up. I was asking you all earlier. I'm approaching 250,000, so I'm approaching 250 hoagies, as we call it. So which is great. I've gotten just a lot since the whole tag situation. I mean, I feel like it was just about a week ago that I was at like 185, and that's shot up to about 245. So, yeah, appreciate everybody out there watching, smashing that bell or whatever we tell people. And yeah, it's been cool. So appreciate y'all.
Great. Well, thank you guys. That was a good discussion. Thanks for everybody that's watching. Check out Sam's Americana tag and Alex's Prog tag. And if you feel so inclined, make a response.
Absolutely.
Amen.
All right, guys. We'll be back next week on Glenn Calloway's channel.
That's right.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Cheers, y'all.